one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to invite everybody to join me in a moment of silence this morning. Thank you. Okay. Next item, Mr. Reed.
So you have before you this morning, as you recall, this board chose Dr. James Sullivan to be a candidate that they would select to enter into a contract with for the next director of schools. Since that time, I've had discussions with Dr. Sullivan about entering into a contract and what terms he'll be willing to serve under. What you have before you is a proposed contract, which he is agreeable to. I'll walk you through the terms here. The template for this contract is the same one which we had for the last two directors. I've highlighted in blue before you the changes that have been made specific to the contract here before you today and with respect to Dr. Sullivan. And let me just walk you through those items. And these are all items for board determination. But for now, Dr. Sullivan has asked for a term of 4 years. So I have plugged in here a term for 4 years, initially subject to the board's approval. And that the term that the board determines will drive these other dates. But if you go with a term of 4 years, that will mean this next term will run from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2026. Which is a term of 4 years. If that is the term the board is agreeable to, then the next sentence, which will be the board shall consider the issue of whether to extend the contract, that date would need to be December 31st, 2025, which would be 6 months prior to the expiration of the contract. And in the event the board does not take any action to renew the contract or extend it, then this contract would expire on June 30th, 2026, if there's no action taken by the board. So all those dates will be driven ultimately by the term that this board determines. So if 4 years is the term that is agreeable to the board, then the dates that I just gave you would be the correct dates. If you have some other term you want to do, we'll have to modify these dates to match the term which the board decides to do. So that's the term of contract in section 1. And the next thing we would need to address as a board on page 3 under item 5 is salary, which I've left that a blank in there for right now for the board to determine what you want to do with respect to salary. I think you've heard the discussions that you've heard from myself and Ms. Tammy Grissom that the director of school salary is lower than commensurate counties now. It's also lower than counties of this size across the nation. The board has established a range from $200,000 to $225,000 at the beginning of this process, which was conveyed to the candidates. Ms. Grissom has indicated she thought that a county of our size should be paying a salary of about $250,000 for the director of schools. So I'll give you those numbers just as your base, but ultimately it's going to be the board decision what you want to do with respect to salary. The salary that we did tell the candidates was that they would be paid between $200 and $225. Okay, so that was the expectation the candidates had coming into the application process. So I think it would be good to try to stay in that range, given the representations of the board if we can do that. But if you want to do something differently, that's within your discretion as a board to do. So that will be an item for your discussion today. Going on through here, the other one thing that Dr. Sullivan had requested on page 4 with respect to the memberships that the director is member of and academies that he would attend, there is the American Association of School Administrators, which is often referred to as AASA. They have a Superintendent's Academy, which is a training program, and he has requested to be allowed to attend that each year. So that has been added to the contract, and that's on page 4 under 6B.
That's an annual event? Just one?
Just one?
Okay.
Okay.
So like continuing education? Thank you.
The other thing which I added under section 13, is under complaints and grievances. I added a section to kind of more directly address what happens if there's complaints by board members against the director. So you'll see in 13B, I've added here, in the event that a board member has a complaint or grievance against the director, the board member may refer the complaint or grievance to the chairman of the Board of Education and the board attorney to investigate and address the same. In the event the complaint's not resolved to the board member's satisfaction, there's a mechanism for that complaint or grievance to now be brought before the Board of Education for the board to take such action as the board determines appropriate. I've also added here that if the board determines a complaint is well-founded, the board may, it's not obligated to, but the board may issue the director a letter of warning, a letter of reprimand, or take such other action as the board is allowed to do under this agreement. So that has been added to try to give a more defined process in the event there's grievances between the director and the Board of Education. Now, to be reciprocal and try to be fair on that, I've added subsection C, which is complaints and grievances by the director against a board member. So in the event there are grievances that the director has against a board member, he can address those to the chairman and the board attorney as well. And in the event that's not resolved to someone's satisfaction, then the board can address the matter and issue in this case, it would just be a letter of determination, because the board would not have authority to issue a letter of reprimand as to a board member. So that's the section we added to try to deal with issues if they arise between the director and the Board of Education. Other than that, the provisions of this agreement are the same that we have been using with the last two directors. And with that, I'll leave it up to your discussion to decide what the board wants to do. I think you need to just decide on a term to make sure what term you are agreeable to as a board, and also what you want to do about salary.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Okay, members of the board, questions, comments? Hopefully you have many.
I was going to ask, if we were to decide as a board to pay $225, at some point when we look at extending his contract, what can we up the salary? If we're really pleased with his performance and want to up the salary, can we at that time do it, or are we locked in at $225?
You could always come back and amend the contract if you choose to do it.
Okay.
It'd be subject to the director of schools approval, but of course, if you're increasing salary, you would think he would be agreeable to it. So, but yes, that would be something that you could come back, and then we have built into language here that the director would get the standard increase that certified employees are getting. Okay. That's in here already.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
And that's what we've been
Every
doing
year.
for
Yeah.
in previous years.
Okay.
But you can do above that if you choose to.
Okay, great question. Ms. Breton, do you have a question? No. So, kind of difficult to have that.
I know,
This
it's
is
weird
very
with
odd.
right there.
It's a weird way to start our relationship together.
At least we're starting it honest, so there you go. I appreciate the range, and I understand what Ms. Grissom has said about the 250. But coming out of where we currently are, which, Mr. Reed, can you tell us where that current salary, is it the 175 range?
Around 173, 174.
I think that 225 is a huge jump, honestly. Although I deeply respect Dr. Sullivan and his experience, I would ask the board to consider more of a 215 range. It's mid-range of what we've asked. My thought is that with that, we could add an annual increase of $5,000. I know the goal, and we talked about this 3 years ago with our current director, knowing that we're so far behind, I didn't want an increase when we hired a new director to be a gut punch, if you will, which is to the taxpayers, which is kind of what we're at here. So in an effort to increase us to where we should be, long point is, if we can add $5,000 a year increase to the pay, I feel like we could, by the end of his contract, get closer to that 250 mark that is recommended. That way it's a progressive, not an all at once.
hadn't thought about that.
I think we'd accomplish the same goal, Ms. Maxwell, that you were.
Yeah, I was appalled when I started looking at salaries.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to get a reputation of being, well, Rutherford County, you don't want to go there, they do everything on the cheap. And that means with all of the salaries, because, you know.
That was very honest. I
I'm sorry.
appreciate your honesty.
I don't want us to get that reputation. And we're very conservative, and we make sure we use our money wisely. But I can see, I'm agreeable to something like that, because I knew that 170 was just not going to do it.
Agreed.
I had not thought of that either, and I think that is an excellent suggestion, not to do this all at once, but to move toward a salary that is more compensatory to other districts our size.
I also think setting the salary range in the middle gives room for growth, and it gives something to build to. But I can be agreeable to a different salary, starting salary, if the board decides.
I think that's a good idea, because should he choose, I mean, he's young, but should he choose to move on in 4 years, that will set us up to be able to bring someone in of a good stature, and someone who's got experience and things like that. So I'm amenable to that. Okay. Make a motion, Sheila.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we set the annual salary starting at $215,000 with annual step increases of $5,000. Let me just finish that up over the next 4 years, because I would like to go ahead and set the contract at 4 years. Can we do that all at once?
You can do that all at once. Will you also want to do the percentage increase to certified employees?
Oh, absolutely. That goes
Doesn't
without
fall
saying.
behind.
That's already in here.
Okay.
I'm adding to it.
So you're saying it will be the $215,000 plus the $5,000 each annual renewal date,
Yes,
and plus the percentage increase certified employees
absolutely,
receive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so that is tied to, he gets that plus whatever employees get.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, he would fall behind
Right.
with inflation and not keep up with the other employees, so we'll just be back in the hole again.
Right. We're trying to get ahead slowly,
To build us to where we should already have been.
but I just put in 4 years also, so we can vote on this and get it all done at once.
Yeah. Okay, let me restate the motion if I think I heard it right. So I think I heard the motion was to do a 4-year term, a salary of $215,000 with annual increases of $5,000 per year, plus the percentage increase that certified employees would receive each year.
That is correct.
I think that is the motion.
Second it?
Okay, we have a first, Ms. Bratton. We have a motion. We have a second, Ms. Maxwell. Ms. Hopkins, will you please take the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
And we do need to approve the form of the contract to be entered by the Board of Education with Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions, are there any other questions on this contract other than what we just voted on? Members of the board? If there are not, I'll entertain a motion to accept this contract and enter into a contractual agreement for Dr. James Sullivan as our Director of Schools.
I so move.
Thank you, Mr.
A
Young.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Ms. Hopkins, would you please take the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Congratulations, Dr. Sullivan, and welcome.
Thank you, and I look forward to the work ahead. We have a We're not a broken district. We're a district that has a lot of success and a very strong foundation. We have some cracks that we need to address to move us forward, but I appreciate the confidence and look forward to working with each of you individually and as a group.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any comments, members of the board, or any further business related to this issue this morning? If there are none, we are adjourned.
Have a safe Memorial Weekend.